Hello, everybody, and welcome to the entertainment headquarters, and welcome to another review. Now, the film I'm about to look at is a film that really caught me interest when I seen the trailer drop. I like the idea, I like the concept of it. And another thing that got me really intrigued was the star of this movie, which is Robert Pattinson. And the film I'm talking about, of course, is Mickey 17. Now, Mickey 17, you know, it's set in the future. It's set, I think, in 2057, and it's quite an interesting concept. And when it comes to Robert Pattinson, he was never an actor really that was on my radar. He's not somebody that I sought out or I found that much interest. And I know he got his start in an earlier Harry Potter movie. He then moved on to the Twilight series, which really wasn't my thing. Like, I love me vampire movies, but I'm not into like the teenage love story type vampire stories. I like me old school dark gothic vampire movies, or just general basic horror vampire movies. So the Twilight series never really stood out for me. And then all of a sudden, boom, Robert Eggers cast him in The Lighthouse with William Dafoe, and I seen something in him that really showed me that he was not just a one-trick pony, that he actually could potentially be quite a versatile actor. Of course, after that, we know he went on to do The Batman, and he's a quite interesting Batman. I wouldn't say he's my favourite, but I don't think he's bad either. I think, he's one film deep. They're all going to start production on the Batman 2, so let's see how he does in round 2 with that particular character. But here we are to talk about Mickey 17. And so let's get cracking and talk about Mickey 17. So, Mickey 17 is a 2025 science fiction black comedy film written, produced, and directed by Bong Joon-ho, who did Parasite, which I believe won an Oscar. Based on the 2022 novel Mickey 7 by Edward Ashton, the film stars Robert Pattinson in the title role alongside Naomi Ackie, Stephen Yeun, Toni Collette, and Mark Ruffalo. Set in the year 2054, the plot follows a man who joins a space colony as an expendable, a disposable worker who gets cloned every time he dies for research purposes. So straight away, that's what grabbed my attention. I like the kind of futuristic science, fiction, space kind of story behind it, and so that's why I made the choice to check it out, as well as, of course, Robert Pattinson. The whole film for me is an interesting concept that has a lot of good, but it has some things that I think go against it. So first and foremost, the story isn't a bad story. You meet Mickey Barnes, and you meet his business partner, who's played by Stephen Yeun's character. And they tried to do a business adventure that just doesn't take off or fails, and they own a lot of money to a loan shark who's coming for it. And so, out of desperation, they join this program to join this space colony. Stephen Yeun's character becomes a pilot. Mickey Barnes literally doesn't really have many skills or anything, much going for him in terms of, skills and smarts, I guess. So he ends up joining the Expendable program. Now, the Expendable program, like mentioned, is that he has agreed that he will just become a worker he's like a worker bee. Any dangerous job or any, very, taxing job in horrendous weathers or that are dangerous, they get him to do. And if he dies, he is instantly cloned, and another version of him takes over where the last one leads off. And that's exactly what happens with Micky. So you see throughout the course of the opening scenes and the monologue of the story, the different versions of Micky basically meeting the demise in different comedic, funny ways. And then all of a sudden, you get to Micky 17, who is the latest version of the character. And he comes across as a very, if I'm honest, a very naive, very kind of, simple person with a simple mindset who doesn't really have many ambitions. He just wants to work, and he meets the security officer who he falls in love, who's played by Naomi Aki's character. Yeah, he falls in love with her. And she herself is quite a wacky character, I found. Like throughout the beginning opening monologue, he's sitting at the dinner table. Everyone's kind of avoiding him because I guess he thinks that he's a weirdo, and circumstances that the fact he's an expendable. Some people are curious and want to know how it feels to die, and other people want to avoid him because they think if they hang around him, I'm assuming they assume they're going to die as well. But she takes a real interest in him and has a genuine attractiveness to him. And that leads to them becoming romantically linked. And, that builds a relationship up. So you get to know those two particular characters. And then you get to meet your villains, which is Toni Collette, who plays the wife of this failed politician, who is played by Mark Ruffalo, who is also, he's like, the way he goes on, he's like a preacher, he's like a cult leader, the way he tries to sucker people in to all of his plans. And he comes up with this idea to create this colony, to fly to this world, to mine it for its minerals and its sources. And it's this giant ice rock, this giant, basically, planet that's made of ice and rock. And he wants to harvest it for its minerals for a sinister purpose. But along the way, when they do that, Micky 17 goes on the mission to just scouting around the locations on the planet, when all of a sudden he has an accident and he falls down this giant deep cave ravine, where Stephen Yeun's character, who was meant to be his friend, leaves him there to die. And you assume he's going to die. And another thing that they come across in this cave and in this place is these creatures that they call the creepers. But for me, they're not creepy at all. Are these cuddly little monster type thing. They're like a walking caterpillar / squid hybrid. You've got the leader one and the little baby ones there. And what ends up happening, Micky 17 does not die. He survives. And as he goes back to the colony, before he knows it, he's already being cloned. And it's when he's cloned, he meets himself, Micky 18. And this starts an event that takes you on the rest of the course of the movie, because Expendables, it's all right having one who dies and comes back, but if you have a duplicate who's still alive, it's forbidden. And that causes the chain of events, and you see the differences between Micky 17 and Micky 18. And the gem of this is the performances of Robert Pattinson, because you generally think these are two separate individuals. You had all these other Mickeys that have been around and passed away under these ridiculous circumstances, being killed out surveying the colony where they're living, or accidents have happened and they've just been crushed or something. And each one of them seems like they've got the exact same personality as Micky 17. But when this happens, and you meet Mickey 18, it feels like he's had a completely different personality shift. He comes across a little bit meaner, a little bit darker, and he's where Mickey 17 is very naive and, you know, all like just wants a peaceful life with his love, played by Naomi Aki. Mickey 18, he's a bit more ambitious, should we say. And, you know, him and Mickey 17 don't really see eye to eye. And, you know, there's tension there. Of course, Naomi Aki's character absolutely loves the fact that there's two Mickeys about, because twice the fun, if you know what I mean. But that's what goes on. And then, of course, you've got the sinister plot between Toni Collette's character, who, you know, Mark Ruffalo, I'll be honest, does a great villain. Like, he's this really, you know, pompous, ambitious politician type villain who wants to, you know, win this election or to be seen in this positive light. But he's not the brains of the outfit. His wife is very devious and is very... she's pulling the strings behind the scenes of all the events that transpire. And so Toni Collette really hams up the screen as this villain, the villain wife. Mark Ruffalo, actually, he plays a great bad guy because he does show how cruel and how amazing of a villain he can possibly be. And it all circles around this colony, the minerals and things they're trying to harvest off this rock ice planet. And of course, it all ties in with a plot around these creatures that live naturally on this planet. And Mickey and the people on Mickey's side that want to go out there and basically do what they can to protect these lovely little creatures. And it all makes for quite an exciting story and plot. And like I say, the positives for me is Robert Pattinson does a great job. You can see the differences in the two characters, the two Mickeys, Mickey 17, Mickey 18. They just feel like naturally separate characters, even though it's supposed to be one and the same, just a clone. You can actually see that work well, and he does a great job trying to show you the different sides of him as a versatile actor, trying to act out the same kind of character but with two personalities. And I do think he does a fantastic job. He really surprised us in this. Mark Ruffalo, Toni Collette. Toni Collette does a great job, but I feel as like I've seen these kind of characters she's played before. I feel as like she's doing similar characters of what she's done before. You know, I remember Glass Out. No, Knives, not Glass Out. Knives Out. Knives Out, the movie where she plays kind of that conniving stepdaughter. I feel like there's similar vibes with that. I feel like it's a similar character. Mark Ruffalo really surprised us with how great he was as like this smarmy, like wanting to be this powerful person, but he's having everyone else do the job for him behind the scenes. And he's got people constantly in his ear. And the black comedy elements with him, Toni Collette, and even the two Mickeys works well together. Naomi Aki's character I thought was a bit strange. She starts off as like this, like, I wouldn't say a controlling girlfriend, but there's just something weird about her character. And how she's like, oh, you know, she instantly just falls for this Mickey. And then all of a sudden, when there's two Mickeys, it's twice the fun and it's a bit strange. And then all of a sudden, she turns into a serious character by the end of the film. There's like a switch that happens. And I found that quite strange, but I understood what they were going with it. It's a very ambitious movie. The effects are brilliant. The sets are brilliant. The costuming's brilliant. The cinematography is brilliant in this. It's a great movie, and I do generally think it's one of those movies that's got a lot good going for it, but I do also think that once you get past the reveal of the two Mickeys, the plot seems to change, and there's like a change, and there's a switch up in the pacing of the movie, and the overall excitement for me disappeared within the movie. Like, I was really excited up to that point, and then it kind of becomes like a genuine black comedy. It goes from being this ambitious sci-fi movie with these elements of humor and comedy to then it just goes from that to just being your stereotypical black comedy. And it just felt like a bit of a switch for me, where where it didn't, sell the rest of the movie for me, if I'm honest. It I just feel as if they could have done a lot more with it to lead the last half of the movie. I felt as if it dragged a bit. There was pacing issues. I felt like there were characters in this that they didn't know what to do with. They're the negatives. These are what I'm seeing as me negatives of the movie. I felt like they introduced certain characters and they didn't know what to do with them, or they didn't know how they were going to take the character beyond where they had took them at the beginning of the movie. And that's me negatives, but it's an entertaining movie for the most part. It does feel like a Star Trek episode. I felt there was something about this movie that felt very Star Trek-ish about it. And I love a bit of Star Trek. I am deep down a big Trekkie as well. I do like me Star Trek. So there was something very Star Trekky about this particular movie that I did enjoy. But I would say it's got a strong beginning, a really interesting middle, and then by the end of the movie, I kind of fell off for me. Not that I lost interest, I just found it just didn't grab us by the end. And this is, an ambitious movie by the director who did Parasite. I do think he's created another fun movie. Is it a movie I would go back to? Yes, but probably not for a while, because it's very similar and has a similar feel and tone to other movies very much like it. But it is still a fun movie. If I have to rate Mickey 17, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. I think that's a fair rating for this film. And like I say, Robert Pattinson is the VIP in this movie. He's the one that you go to watch in this, because it's great to see him show more versatility as an actor, playing these two versions of the same character, Mickey 17 and Mickey 18, and you can differentiate between the two characters. You can tell who's 17 and you can tell who's 18. He does a brilliant job at that. And like I say, the rest of the characters, they do what's written on the tin, I guess, with them. The story starts off strong and ambitious, but then for me, like I say, it kind of falls off by the end. It becomes not predictable, but it's not as strong as I was expecting it to be by film's end. But hey-ho, that's the way it goes. But that's my review of Mickey 17. What did you think of Mickey 17? If you've seen it, did you enjoy it? Is it something you'd watch again? What do you think of the cast? What do you think of Robert Pattinson? Let me know in the comments below. But like I always say, keep on enjoying your movies, keep on enjoying all things entertainment, and I'll catch us all at the next one.